Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. So that's been fantastic.
Yep.
And Zici Water, I'm loving it. So I've started about just over a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good friend of mine, Sanjay Ram, who he's the CEO of Zici Group of companies. Mm-hmm. He brought me on board to help him launch a new service. So Zici Tabs, which is a company that's been around for over 25 years in that telco space. So that's how we know each other from back in the telecom days. And Zici Tabs is a telecommunications billing platform. And a few years ago, they also not decided to pivot, but were asked to pivot by one of their clients because they had an issue in their apartment building. So one thing that I've learned recently, which I didn't know because I never lived in an apartment in Auckland, is that Watercare brings one water meter to the entire block of apartments. And then it gets split up by the body corporate. So if you live in an apartment, you're probably not likely to have an individual meter of your water, which means it's a kind of a communal resource. What we found, so there's a couple of things. There's some challenges with billing and collection that body corporates have, but also because there's no accountability because your water bill is not individual. It's if you use more than the next door neighbor, you still pay the same or less for that matter. And so what we found is that because there's no accountability, people don't actually know how much they're using, so they can't address it as an issue.
Yeah.
So the buildings where we put those water meters in, what we've figured out is that the usage goes almost overnight goes down by 25%. So they actually save water and save money straight away by putting in meters and measuring water. It's a very interesting statistic. So I had no idea that most of the apartment buildings around Auckland and Christchurch and Wellington, for that matter,
and probably in other countries too, in terms of scaling again.
So at the moment it's New Zealand, and once we get a good test run and foot cold in New Zealand, we'll look at what's happening in the other countries. But it's interesting enough in New Zealand we have councils that don't even bill for water at all. They just provide water infrastructure and pay for it out of the rates.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, wow. And that is very interesting. So this whole three waters debate that's going on with the government. What I didn't know is that there is actually a real problem around the country around of all the councils, Auckland's probably one of the better ones managed in terms of billing and metering and all that. But that accountability piece is quite important.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And obviously huge benefits in terms of sustainability as well. One of the things that's fascinating there is the complexity of the stakeholder environment.
Yes.
And you might say the complexity of the customer base. So you have your end customers of water, the households who are using it, but to try and get your system operational, you must have to manage lots of different touch points.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us something about that?
Absolutely. It's probably one of the more complex sales environments and strategies that I've been part of. So you end up dealing with ideally people who pay for it are people who own these apartments. So your landlords and apartment owners, but then they organize themselves into a body corporate. So every apartment block has to have a body corporate committee, and that committee is a voluntary committee that is elected by the owners, by the apartment owners. They have a chairman, and then they appoint an administrator, a body corporate administrator, and they also appoint a building manager who manages things. So between the bunch of people on the committee, everyone else, the building manager, and the body corporate administrator, you kind of need to get everybody on the same page in order to make it happen. And so it's a very fascinating environment. And the interesting thing is that the people who use less but pay more want the solution straight away.
Yes.
The people who use more but pay less, not so much.
They're quite happy to keep their heads down.
And so you end up in the middle of that political almost conversation where you need to convince the majority to come your way.
And is that your role as a sort of, general manager, but also I guess the lead sales guy in some ways?
Absolutely.
You're learning a lot from that process.
Absolutely. I'm learning a lot from that process. It is a very interesting sales environment. That's absolutely right.
Getting some more great questions through, which actually is brilliant because it poises me for the next phase really in this conversation. So we'll get to those questions, but just to set things up, I think talking to you previously, looking at your profile, you're a little bit of a futurist. You're a technologist. You're passionate about technology and selling it and developing it. So you're looking towards the future and you're looking at change and what that means for things. So let's start a bit of a conversation about that, and I think we're going to see lots of questions coming through for this part. In terms of your business interests going forward, your personal and professional interests in technology, but also in terms of the broader society, what are the big technology trends, the big IT trends that interest you, excite you, scare you? Whatever those might be. Open question, and I think I know where this might go. But
well, with both these roles that I've just discussed, there are trends that I love and enjoy. I mean, I do enjoy the network and IT security, and I have done so since the Asterisk days, which was 20 years ago. The Zici water one has a very interesting technological angle because these meters that we're deploying, they are Internet of Things devices, IoT devices. And this whole IoT space is a fascinating area. I've been monitoring that for the last 5 or 6 years. The development of the IoT networks, the development of the IoT devices, and I think it's sort of the hype curve. It's sort of coming down that hype curve into a fairly established market area, and this is where it's time for business to actually reap the rewards and make the money, because everybody else already made all the mistakes and lost all the money and done that. So that's where Zici Water is fascinating, is because we're bringing IoT into everyday consumer space and life, and solving real problem while we're at it. That's one of the things that gives me a very big kick is hey, this is all this theory that I've been looking and monitoring for turning up to meetups and listening to enthusiasts talking about this technology, and now I actually see that applied in the real life scenario, saving someone water. It's amazing, right?